Quarter tank. I've been driving long haul for 11 years, mostly the I-70 corridor and the state routes that feed into it. And I want to say up front that I know that highway, the way you know your own hallway in the dark. I could tell you every rest stop, every dead cell signal patch, every diner that's worth the exit. So when I tell you there's a gas station on Route 9 between the grain silos and the river bridge that I never once saw in 11 years, and now I see it every time my tank drops low enough, I need you to understand, that isn't a small thing for a man in my line of work. Noticing things is the job. It started on a run in March, hauling refrigerated freight up from Terre Haute at 2 in the morning. The kind of drive where the road narrows down to just your headlights and the white line and your own thoughts. My gauge was sitting under a quarter tank, lower than I like to let it get, and I was doing the math on whether I'd make it to the truck stop at the 970 interchange or need to peel off sooner. That's when I saw the sign. Blue and white. An old brand I hadn't seen since I was a kid. The kind of logo that doesn't exist on any pump card network anymore. Sterling Fuel, it said, and under that, lit up in orange bulbs, a price, 0.89, a gallon. I remember laughing out loud in the cab, 89 cents. Some novelty place, I figured. An old sign somebody kept up for nostalgia, still selling actual gas at actual prices. One of those roadside oddities you see in Route 66 photo books. I pulled in because I needed the fuel and I was curious. And because at 2 in the morning, curiosity feels cheaper than it does in daylight. The lot was gravel, lit by 2 sodium lamps that made everything look like it was underwater. There was one pump, old style, with a mechanical number wheel instead of a digital display, and a little office building with a single window full of cigarette cartons and a bell over the door. A man came out before I'd even gotten my hose off the nozzle. Older guy, gray coveralls, name patch that said Ray. He didn't ask what I wanted. He said, "Fill it up, Denny, and I'll get you a coffee, black, 2 sugars, for the road." I don't go by Denny. Nobody's called me Denny since my grandfather died. He's the only one who ever did. My coffee order was right, though. Black, 2 sugars, which is exactly how I've taken it since I started this job. A fact I don't think I've ever said out loud to a stranger in my life. I told myself he must have overheard me on the CB, or seen a name on my paperwork through the windshield. Though my paperwork says Dennis and nobody in trucking calls me that either. I paid in cash. The pump didn't take cards, obviously, and got back on the road with a coffee that tasted fine, ordinary, and a feeling in my stomach I couldn't name yet. I didn't think about it again until May. Another late run, tank down under a quarter again, somewhere past the grain silos, and there it was. Same lot, same 2 sodium lamps, same number wheel pump. I'd driven that stretch 4 times since March with plenty of fuel in the tank and never seen so much as a fence post where that station stood. I told myself I just hadn't been paying attention, that you can drive the same road 1,000 times and still miss things. But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true, because I don't miss things on that road. That road is my job. Ray came out again. "Evening, Denny. Coffee's already going." The price on the sign hadn't moved, 89 cents. I asked him, trying to sound casual, how long the station had been open, and he smiled in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes and said, "Long as you've needed it to be," and went to go start the coffee maker, like that was a normal thing to say to a customer. I started watching my gauge differently after that, not out of habit anymore, out of dread. I'd catch myself doing math I never used to do, working out exactly how many miles I had before I'd drop under a quarter tank, and rerouting through gas stations I knew were real, chain stations with fluorescent lights and card readers and teenage cashiers who had no idea who I was, just so I wouldn't have to find out if Sterling Fuel would be waiting on that stretch of road again. It worked, for a while. I kept my tank topped up religious, filled it at 3/4 instead of running it down, and I didn't see the station on any of my runs through the summer. Then in September, my regular truck was in the shop, and I got put in an older rig with a fuel gauge that ran generous. Showed more than was actually in the tank. A known issue the fleet manager waved off as character. I didn't know that yet. I drove the Route 9 stretch at what I thought was half a tank. Comfortable. Not even thinking about it. When the gauge dropped without warning. The needle sliding down, like something had reached in and pulled it. And by the time I noticed it read just under a quarter, the grain silos were behind me, and the sodium lamps were already glowing up ahead like they'd been waiting. That night, Ray didn't wait for me to get out of the cab. He was standing by the pump before I'd even come to a full stop, like he'd heard the engine change pitch from the highway and known exactly when to walk out. "Fill it up, Denny," he said. And then, for the first time, something new. "You've been driving around us, that's all right. We're patient." I asked him what he meant by us, and he just tipped his head toward the little office window, where I could have sworn, just for a second, I saw more than one shape moving behind the cigarette cartons. Though when I looked straight at it, there was only the one bare bulb and Ray's own reflection. I didn't take the coffee that night. I paid. I got back on the highway, and I drove faster than I should have until the silos and the bridge, every trace of that gravel lot, were a long way behind me. I've been back in my regular rig for 2 months now, and I keep my tank full. Always. Obsessively. Topping off if I so much as dip under half. But 3 nights ago, driving a stretch of I-70 I've run 100 times, nowhere near Route 9, nowhere near those silos, my gauge dropped. Not slowly, the way a gauge should when you're burning fuel. It dropped the way it did that night in the borrowed truck, the needle sliding fast. Like something on the other end of it had decided the tank was low, whether or not the tank agreed. It settled just under a quarter and held there, steady, no matter how far I drove, or how much fuel the receipt from my last stop said should still be in the tank. I haven't seen the sodium lamps yet, but I've started watching the shoulder of every dark road I drive now, waiting for that blue and white sign to show up somewhere it has no business being. And last night, for just a moment, on a stretch of highway 200 miles from Route 9, I thought I smelled coffee. Black, faint, and gone, before I could be sure it was ever really there.